So I'm going to stop talking. Everybody came to hear you speak. Just tell us what happened to you on this weekend, and just say something.
Well, well, thank you, Benjamin. I'm so glad to be back on the show with you and your listeners. And thank you also for your due diligence on social media. And I got to give a shout out to Sean King as well,
Absolutely.
who was very diligent in making sure that the right information got out there, and all of the Bernie Sanders supporters in Nevada and also across the country who were concerned. I want to say for the record that the Sanders supporters in Nevada absolutely did not boo me. They were very frustrated, and
Hmm.
people have to read the context of the room. And it really is unfortunate that some media sources would put something out like that, because it
Yeah.
just further feeds into the stereotype that some in the media, and certainly some in the Clinton camp, want to continue to perpetuate about Senator Sanders supporters.
Yeah.
Nobody's supporters are homogeneous, and nobody can control all of their supporters. She can't, and neither can, Senator Sanders.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, first of all, for because that's what I reached out to you for, because I needed to hear directly from you. Were you booed, and were you booed by Sanders supporters? Because I didn't believe it. My gut reaction was, it doesn't sound accurate, but you never know what happens. And so that's how we
Hmm.
actually got connected here. So thank you for setting that out at the beginning, because that actually became national news really quickly across social media and blogs that you had been booed. So now that that's cleared up, and you were not booed, tell me about the actual event and your role. I saw the video. First of all, you are an evangelist's daughter. Let me say that. You you most certainly come from the same type of background that I came from, because I knew everything that you were talking about, even if everyone in the audience didn't know. But tell us about that speech that you gave, and why you felt it was so necessary to speak in that manner to that audience on that day.
Well, thank you, Benjamin. Before I get to that, I gotta tell you, I went to church for 8 days a week, so I know you understand that.
Yes, ma'am.
8 days. So
8 days.
Mama made sure you couldn't go to the movies, you couldn't go to the mall, you couldn't do a daggone thing unless you got your church in
Yes.
8 days a week. So it's in me, and I'm proud of it. I'm really proud. My mother's not on this plane of existence, but I believe that she would be very proud of
Yeah.
the efforts that I've made in my life thus far, in terms of lifting up those, and being a voice for the voiceless. So,
Yeah.
in terms of what happened on Saturday, I was in that room for almost 8 hours.
Mm.
From the time I got there before I was scheduled to speak, because I think it's important that you get with the people. That's the kind of public servant I have always been, and that's the kind of public servant that Senator Bernie Sanders is. When you look at a man, who would have ever thought that a man that's running for president would be on a picket line?
Mm.
That's the kind of leader that he is. He did that before he was running for president. He did that as a candidate for president. But that's the kind of leader he is, and that's why him and I, we have similar styles of leadership. But so I thought it was important not just to come in there to give a speech, but to be there among the people. And
Right.
from the time I hit the door, the Sanders supporters were concerned about unfairness. They felt like the process had already
Yeah.
been rigged before they got there.
Yep.
And for me, it was important to encourage them to work with some of the folks on the ground, like Joan. I want to give her a shout out. She is the state director there in Nevada. And people need to understand they've done this. There was a caucus, there was a county convention, as you know, and then there
Yeah.
was a state convention. So that was actually the third time, and you getting folks who are excited to try to give that kind of time of their day to keep coming back and standing up for their respective candidates. So
Hmm.
I was there when the vote took place in terms of rule changes, and Senator Sanders supporters believed that there was some cheating going on, and the question was called about the rules,
Right.
and there was a voice vote. And people can go back and listen to the yays and listen to the nays. The yays would benefit Secretary Clinton. If they had said nay, then the rule would have certainly helped
Right.
Senator Sanders. And I'm just Cliff Notes version.
I will call the question. It has been moved and seconded that the temporary convention rules be passed by the body. All those in favor say aye.
nays had it.
Yeah.
And the chairwoman gave it to the yays
Yeah.
and said more discussion. And so folks were upset.
Yeah. I mean,
And rightfully.
rightfully so. Go ahead. You got it, Nina. I don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
I mean, so they were upset. So that was the context that was filling that room. So you had Senator Sanders supporters very much in front of that stage, letting the leaders on that stage know that cheating happened, that it's unfair, and that they're not going to stand for it.
Right.
And people need to understand that on the left and the right, and we can say whatever we want to say about our sisters and brothers on the right. One thing I can say, and I don't agree with the racism and the sexism and all the isms that are negative in this world, but I will tell you this. Folks are not going for the status quo, and they are not going for business as usual, and they're not going to stand by and allow people to cheat. Now, fair is fair. And so Senator Barbara Boxer was there to represent, the secretary, and I was there to represent Senator Sanders. So now on the agenda, and anybody can go back and look at the agenda, I was supposed to go before Senator Boxer.
Right.
So, but I guess they decided to let Senator Boxer go before me. So she goes up there, she doing her thing, she's trying to represent her candidate, but what she did, it was the tone that she took with them. And it started off as, kind of, can we all just kind of get along? And then it built up to a very condescending tone. So they started booing. Now, you want to talk about booing, the media needs to report really who was booed, because Senator Barbara Boxer was booed the entire time, because the Sanders supporters were just very fed up. And she basically said things like, you can boo yourself out the party and those kinds of things. I mean, it's just not right. You go as a leader in that kind of situation, you're not supposed to put gasoline on the fire.
Right.
And that's what Senator Boxer did. And I have a great deal of respect for Senator Boxer. I'm just calling it the way I see it. And so when I got up there, Representative Lucy Flores was charged with introducing me, but the crowd was already very emotional and very upset because of cheating.
Yeah.
And it's important for listeners to know that every single standing committee that has something to do with that state convention in terms of platform, rules, and then they also have something called the Teller Committee, and the Teller Committee is responsible for recounts that would have went on right there at that state convention. Every single one of those committees are controlled by pro-Secretary Clinton folks. Now imagine that. You're a Bernie supporter, but every chair of every standing committee is led by the secretary's supporters. And you want to tell me that there's not some unfairness there?
Right.
And these folks, they got to look at this, and so they get it. So they're upset, they're booing so much. I mean, so the senator was, police escorted her out. You got police standing in front of the stage. Nobody tried to do anything violent whatsoever. But were they upset? Yes, they absolutely were very, very upset. So my sister, Representative Flores, so we get on the stage. The chairwoman pulls us to the side and says, we need you guys to get them calm. They're very upset. I'm trying the best that I can. I'm trying. And you know what? Both Lucy and I, Representative Flores and I, both agreed. As leaders, we're not going to put gasoline on the fire, because we could have both went up there and said, storm the damn torpedoes. That's what we could have did.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But oh no, we trying to be the bigger people.
Yeah.
So Representative Flores gets up there and she says, listen, guys, Senator Boxer is a good, she just said she did her thing before she introduced me. She tried to down. They were still upset. There's no doubt about it. They were upset. Upset with the leaders up there, not upset with Representative Flores or myself. So she introduces me. They're cheering, they're chanting my name. And so I do what any good leader in that situation is supposed to do, which is this wasn't no Trump rap. I wasn't up there trying to be Mr. Trump. Talking about knock them down, beat them, punch them, let's take it to the street.
Yeah.
I didn't do none of that. I could have.
You could have.
But I did. Right. Because I was upset too. And I was feeling their pain.
Yeah.
And so I just got up there and I said, listen, we got to be calm but committed.
Yeah.
And I know that you upset. And that's when they were like, yeah, that kind of thing. That was it. But by the time, if anybody watches that video of my speech, by the time I got done, They were cheering, they were chanting. I had to lift them and renew their spirits.
Yeah.
That although things seemed patently unfair, and they were unfair, that your commitment to stand in that room,
Yeah.
that Senator Sanders cannot be president of the United States of America without you, without your efforts
Yeah.
to stay in the room and keep fighting.
Yep.
Keep fighting, even though it's unfair.
Let me
But you ain't got to go. So that was it.
let me
That
say
was it.
something first of all,
Can I
Nina.
just say one more thing? And
Yeah,
by the
sure.
and by the time I was done, even some of HRC, even some of the secretary's supporters
Yep.
stood up and were cheering. If people watch that video very closely, they will see that. And I'm gonna tell you something. I couldn't get off the stage. I got off the stage. I couldn't move beyond the stage because so many of Senator Sanders' supporters came up to me, wanting to take pictures with me, shaking my hand, thanking me for being a strong
Yeah.
voice for Senator Sanders, thanking me for having the courage, and thanking me for being a real leader. Even some of the secretary supporters came up to me and did the same thing and was taking pictures with me. I stayed in that room for 8 hours. I
Wow.
stayed after my speech. I didn't leave like Senator Boxer. I didn't leave. I stayed there among the people
Yeah.
because that's the kind of leader I am. But that's also the kind of leader that I'm representing.
Wow. Wow. I love that. Now I have a couple of things to say. I only had one thing to say before, but now I have two things to say. One, I mean it really just speaks volumes to the type of leader that you are, and I love that you tie that into that. That's the type of leader Bernie Sanders is, and your willingness to do this difficult role. Because quite honest with you, this is why you're a leader, and this is why I'm doing radio, because you're a better person than me. I probably would have got on stage and said, "Tear this whole thing." No, I would have, because when you see an injustice right in front of you, it's hard to contain that
Hard.
energy, and you were able to do it without betraying yourself and without betraying your message and Bernie Sanders' message, because above all else,
Yeah.
we wanted people to get out of there safely, and we can address the issues. Like I was just speaking with Dan Rowe, they're actually going to follow up on this. They're going through the channels to actually address what happened that day. But I want to ask you, how did you feel about them creating a problem and then them coming to you to be the solution for the problem? How did that make you feel?
I was kind of taken aback because I knew what my mission was, and my mission was to represent the senator
Yeah.
and to keep his delegates strong and committed and energized, and hopefully to win some other folks over to him,
Yeah.
to do what I was able to do in Clark County, because he won that county.
Yeah.
A couple of months before the state delegation, I was there at that time where he got more delegates, and so my job was to try to duplicate that moment.
Yeah.
And so it just really kind of took. I was in shock totally that was going on, that level of unfairness was going on,
Yeah.
that level of chaos in that room was going on. Not, not, and for me, because I ran for Secretary of State and I know how important the voice is, and I know it's a caucus and not a primary, but the same thing applies to me,
Mhm.
that the numbers of people who showed up for the secretary and the numbers of people that showed up for Senator Sanders, each group should be treated fairly and with respect, and let the chips fall where they may. But to have manipulation go on
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
that is very upsetting. And people were giving up their time. I mean, these are mothers and fathers and grandmothers and aunts and uncles and children. I mean, there were babies in that room. And you think about how long a caucus takes.
Right.
People were in that room, some of them for up to 15 hours, some of them. And to be cheated like that, to have that happen, to have, not allowing a minority report to come forward, to have parking challenges, because Benjamin, a lot of that, some of the people who were late, it was because of parking challenges. The
Hmm.
parking garage was totally full, and some people shared with me how they had to park far away and then walk back to the Paris. We were at the Paris hotel
Right.
in Las Vegas. Some people had to walk back because there was not ample parking, and not to have a contingency plan to kind of deal with those kinds of things. As leaders, people that were leading that convention should have had a contingency plan.
Right.
And about 64 people, between 64 and 70 of Senator Sanders supporters,
Yeah.
as I understand it, were penalized and not allowed to vote. And there was about a 30 vote difference between the secretary and Senator Sanders. And so people were just They were angry. So yeah, that's not what I came to do. But as a leader, you know what? I'm ready to step in and lead, and that's exactly what I did. And I got to give a shout out to my sister Lucy as well, because she lives there and
Yeah.
she has to deal with this. And she showed great courage and integrity in really trying to bring that temperature down as well.
That's awesome. We've had Lucy on the show a couple of times, and the two
Yeah.
of you together, like it was just a 1-2 punch, and it was exactly what was needed. I want to shift really quickly because I just got to thank you again, Nina, for just keeping on trying to get connected with me tonight after 45 minutes of not being able to get connected. So I owe you a big one. Whenever we're in the same city, I know you're an evangelist's daughter, but whatever your favorite bourbon is, let me know so I can treat you. But I want to shift really quickly and ask about you, because I am fascinated with your voice. I'm fascinated with your ability to connect with people, and I'm fascinated with what's next for you. Not even in the context of this campaign, but what's next for Nina Turner. And I will add this little glaze on top of that question, because there's a lot of people gunning for you to never have a voice again because you dare challenge the status quo. You dare challenge Hillary Clinton. So I want to know what's next for you, so that I can rally more people to come and support what you're doing, because we're not going to let them win. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. I want to continue to be a voice for the people, and if I choose to run again, I will. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I have been threatened by supporters of Secretary Clinton, vilified by them, you name it. So, when people want to talk about Senator Sanders supporters, that cuts both ways. But my eyes are clearly on the prize, and God has always ordered my steps, Benjamin. And it doesn't mean that as a human, you don't feel, the disappointment of people coming after you. But you're
Yeah.
right. People have flat out said, we're going to make sure she never holds elected office again.
Yep.
But you know what? The folks here on this earth, they don't control my destiny. God Almighty does. And it is the good people like you and others who have been in my corner. Because I'm going to tell you something, I've gotten more good than bad. And I even have some sisters in the struggle who do support Secretary Clinton. Some sisters in the struggle who support Mr. Trump. As odd as people may think that is. Folks are not homogeneous. People are craving for something different in this country, and they crying out, and they gonna get it one way or the other. But I will tell you this: God orders my steps. So whatever I decide, whether it's going back in the elected ministry in a formal way, or to continue to be a voice for the people in whatever, a minister said this to me, and I think I can sum it up this way. He said, Senator Turner, you have been called to use your advantage for the advancement of the people.
Wow.
And that is what I do every single day.
Nina Turner, I really appreciate you. Love you so much. My co-host
Back
Noah,
at you.
she told me to tell you that you are her idol, and she absolutely loves you. So
Aw.
Noah Chunga, she just hit me in the chat room and said you gotta tell her. So she loves
Tell
you.
her I love her back. Love you guys and all your listeners. And I want to thank you for reaching out to me, because you didn't have to do that. You did that to make sure that I was okay. And the fact that you wanted to check to say, wait a minute now, I know what they're saying on social media, but I got to hear it from her.
Yeah.
And then again to Representative Flores, who's running for Congress, who will be a great progressive in that Congress with Senator Bernie Sanders as president. We need to get her in. And then lastly, again, I have to give a big shout out to Sean King, because he's been on top of this every step of the way, making sure that folks out there have at least the ability to get the real facts if they want them. Now, some folks don't want them,
Right.
but if they want them, they will have them. Thank you, progressives. We're going to keep the faith, but daggone, we are going to keep the fight. And as Brother Frederick Douglass once said, power concedes nothing without a struggle. It never has and never will. And we will keep up the fight.
Nina, you almost said, you said thank you, progressives. Could you just say thank you, Progressive Army, for me?
Thank you, Progressive Army.
That's it.
Yes.
Oh, we love you so much,
Yes.
Nina. Anytime you want to come on, you
Love
got carte
that.
blanche, so just let me know. And you go get some rest, because I know they're working you extra hard.
They are. Thank you so much. Peace and blessings.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Oh, man. I don't know. Every time I talk to Nina, I'm like, because we come back, we go. Nina and I, like, we've never met in real life, but we come from the same tradition. She still speaks with the well, we come from the same background. We'll put it like that. So anyway, that's the whole story. I'm sticking with it. David, thanks so much for all the information there.